little black book. You know what time it is. 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 Hey guys, and welcome to Dark Arts channel. This is where we help you guys navigate the dating world to help you avoid the pitfalls, the manipulation, the control that people like to implement on you. Okay, so if you're tired of being played, then this is the channel for you. Today we've got a special one. Because we wanted to use Halle. I keep saying Halle, but it's Halle Bailey and DDG, and I wanted to talk about something because since they're popping, I thought, you know what, let me bring some insight to the situation. And I wanted to talk a little bit about triangulation. Okay, triangulation. Look, I think a lot of times when we talk about relationships, this triangulation that we mentioned always seems to go straight for the negative, right? So like when someone says triangulation, immediately everyone's thought goes to when someone brings a third party in and tries to, gaslight them, or have two on one, etc., but actually triangulation necessarily, it can be bad, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's necessarily manipulative. Sometimes we have it as a third party to come in and adjudicate. Sometimes we have a way of using it to for a third party to come in, be able to make sure that two parties are not going too wild. I guess that's adjudication as well, but it doesn't always have to be the negative aspect. But since this is dark arts, I'm going to bring it to the negative aspect, because what I saw with DDG and Halle Bailey, it made me think. It made me think because I'm not going to say that DDG is specifically using triangulation, but what I would say is I have to be cautious about this behavior because it's looking like that. Okay. All right. So if you are new to this channel, do me a massive, 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 massive favor. Like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. For those of you guys who are joining also from Little Black Book, listen, I am going to lock off the live on the Little Black Book and we're going to put it onto Dark Arts. So if you haven't subscribed already to the Dark Arts, yeah, you better get on it, because I'm going to literally put the link in the chat. After about 5 minutes, we're going to lock off the Little Black Book and we'll talk solely on Dark Arts YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed to it, please get on it, because today's particular live topic is a Dark Arts for the YouTube. All right, cool. So talking obviously about, oh, I got my live behind me. Talking obviously about the situation with DDG and Halle Bailey. What we have seen with this couple is we've seen how Ruby Rose, who is the ex-girlfriend of DDG, how she has been involved in a situation, and she has got herself involved by coming at Halle Bailey in a way that is by outing DDG. Now, Ruby Rose could have sat in her chair, kept quiet, and said nothing. But she too had her own agenda. It wasn't just about exposing DDG. She wasn't doing it for DDG to expose DDG. No, no, no. This was her own volition and her own pride and her own I got you moment. And she used Halle as what we call collateral damage. In life, you have to understand there is war that goes on. And in the war, people can be used as collateral damage. Halle is collateral damage between Ruby Rose and DDG. And let me tell you something. When it comes to relationships, as a man, anybody listening to this, as a man, if you have an ex that can make your girl collateral damage and you don't shut her down, I'm thinking that you are a part of the madness too. Hear what I'm going to say to you. If you wouldn't stop somebody from using your partner as collateral damage in the war against you, you don't damage limitate, you don't circle back and initiate a union plan with your partner, you are a part of that nonsense, right? And I'm going to bring this on a holistic aspect so we can actually understand what's going on. I'm just giving a little background, right? So what we see here with with DGG, Ruby Rose, and Haley is that uh, you know DDG has given ammunition to the enemy to use against his partner. And I keep saying this as when we talk about relationships, you are not your own party in this relationship. You represent not only you, but the other person. Everything you do affects the partner that you're with. Everything. Everything you do affects the partner that you're with. And so to have your partner exposed in this way you have where you have uh you know someone coming and being able to talk about how you cheated on them, and then also at the same time be able to have a back and forth on the big boy internet. You've exposed your relationship in such a way that's left your relationship vulnerable, and left it open for attack because you haven't shut the door, right? Now I'm going to come on to my talk about triangulation. You know, but that's why I said Ruby Rose has her own agenda. Okay, Ruby Rose as an ex has her own agenda. If she was done with DGG, she just leave it as it is. She's acting as if she's still got feelings involved with DDG. Like if you come to a woman as a woman, it's because either because he's promised you something, you know what, he said that he wants you, da, da, da. But you know what, in reality, most times when people go to a woman as a woman, it's because you've been promised something, you've been asked, you've been given something, you've been told you're going to get this and you didn't get it, and you feel betrayed in that moment, and that's why you do that. I'm not saying it's wrong per se, but I'm saying that most people have an agenda of their own. Ruby Rose has an agenda of her own, right? Whether it's to embarrass DDG, whether it's to get him back, whether it's because she doesn't like Haley. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was going on there that we could talk about that. But we talking about dark arts, manipulation, right? Manipulation. Okay. All right. Ooh, Chile. That's also a good point as well. Maybe she was under the impression that they will get back together again, and that's why she decided to do what she did, because she's been doing the most and he's been doing the most. Okay. Yeah, that back and forth that you've been doing on Twitter is really not it at all. But let's start getting into things. Let's talk about why I believe that there's some dark arts to talk about in this particular situation with DDG and Haley and Ruby Rose. My first thing I want to talk about is what we call the backup. The backup and the meaning of the backup. Having Ruby Rose as a backup, because immediately as he broke up with his first girlfriend Haley, sorry, immediately as he broke up with Haley, it looks like he went straight to his ex to have a conversation. This means you have a backup in your relationship. Even if you're having to wait till you're on a break, it means you have a backup the way you quickly went to an ex. And the backup, what it means is somebody who is in the background, who when you're having problems, you immediately go to in order to prop yourself up so you don't have to deal with the negative feelings that you're facing at that moment. Hear me again. The backup person is a person in the background that provides a foundation of support for you so that when you fall, you don't feel the pain of dealing with a loss of your relationship in that immediate moment. And so you don't have to deal with the ramifications of the loss. And people who do this are trying to make themselves invulnerable so they don't feel pain. The issue with this is you create destruction by not dealing with pain. Because eventually the pain's got to go somewhere, right? And so in this situation, what you see with DDG, Ruby Rose, and Haley is you went to message her, DM'd her. The reason being is because she was a backup. Now, Ruby Rose, knowing that she's a backup in that moment, is expecting to be called up onto the field. Okay, that's the problem with this particular backup. This particular backup believes they're not a backup. They believe they're a first team player. And so since they're a first team player, first draft pick, they ain't choosing the background for too long. So you're going to get exposed, right? Because a person sees himself as a particular value and you're undervaluing them. This is the form of this is the issue we're having right now. This is the dark arts. You chose your ex to be the backdrop, the background, so that when you fall, she can cushion the fall so you don't feel it too much, right? You try to make yourself invulnerable. But then a person who you've chosen doesn't believe they're a backup. They believe they're first team. Therefore, when you fall and you get back up on your 2 feet, they're expecting you to pull them along and let them be on the field of play now because they're ready to be what? A first team player. This is what we mean by the backup. Ruby Rose is the backup, and that's why she feels so hurt right now because probably he didn't come good on his promise. Probably he's been chatting for a little bit long. Probably because not even probably, but the message that she showed it, he tried to enter the DMs, etc. Maybe she thought that they might get somewhere with it. Didn't happen, you know. But oftentimes when you put the backup on there, this don't end up well. All right, this don't end well. You're meant to give them minutes, and you didn't give them any. You know. All right, cool. Let's go to our second point. In fact, let me get to my story time. So let me explain what I mean by this triangulation. Understand why I'm talking about this. I remember it's dark arts, right? So I'm gonna tell you some stuff that I did back in the past. I can't wait to start reading my podcast, man. I've been writing, putting stuff into writing so I can start recording these audio podcasts for you guys about these situations because you know what, I want to help people, but I want to be able to um, you know I want to be able to. I want people to know that there's we do mad things and we pretend as if we don't know what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let me bring the story time. So let me put a little bit of music in the background so you can get a little scenery going. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. A little scenery music coming from behind. Do you know what I'm saying? Just a little side. Okay. So in the situation, I remember back in the day. This was back in the day. This was one of some of my early relationships. And I remember I was at this point in time, me and my girl at the time, we had war. Yeah, we had war because we would like to do tit for tat. We like to see who could win. We like to try and outdo each other, right? We like to trying to see who do. She'll tell me about some guys. I'll tell her about some girls, and da da da. It was a little bit of toxicity that was involved in this relationship. I'll be honest with you, right? But you're young and you're silly and you're stupid and you do dumb things, right? Okay, so in this video, in this particular story, okay, so here it goes. So at this point in time, what happened was there was another girl that I was speaking to, right? We were just friends, but there was a lot of flirtation going on, right? She had a man, I had my girl. It was calm, but I thought she was attractive. Don't get it twisted. I really did fancy her. I ain't gonna lie to you. She was fine. Whew. She was super fine, right? We'd normally meet on the dance floor or going out and we'd have a little dance and everything like that, blah, blah, blah. I'd been round to the house a few times, but you know what? I'll be honest with you, she didn't allow me to hit it. Otherwise, I would have done it. I would have probably cheated. If she allowed me to, I would have cheated. I'm just be honest with you. All right, cool. Anyway, so we used to obviously text back and talk, and these are the days of early text messages. You didn't have an iPhone the way you don't message and bubble up then times. There's Android things. The ones where you had your music just started to come into the Walkman. Okay, cool. All right, so obviously now, we've been talking over the course of the time and texting and stuff, and the texting is really wild. Like I'm saying mad things, like I want to do this to her, I want to do that to her, I want to, do etc to her, right? She's saying wild things back as well, like this to that. We are vibing, and we know it's, we're flirting, we're being bad, we're being mad. You know what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing: I was manipulative. Can't lie to you, I was manipulative, because in that moment I remember I was like, do you know what? I remember when my girl did XYZ. Nah, she needs to learn a lesson, but it's not gonna do it to me because we used to do dumb stuff where we used to try and manipulate each other just to understand. So now I'm like, nah, can't have this. She gonna learn today. So as I'm obviously now, I've done the text. I'm laughing. I'm texting at this. I'm like, wow, that's mad. All right. I look over to see if my girlfriend's looking over. She's looking. All right, cool. Hey, listen, this girl is mad. Now you need to stop. I'm still texting away, and I can see that she's looking now. Right, I've got her attention, and I'm proper cackling now. Listen, this girl's a whole fool. My girl's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, nah, Fingy's moving mad. Let's just call her Evelyn. Evelyn's moving mad. She's just being silly. Oh, okay, cool. Right? Now, I don't you know what? Sometimes, things happen for a reason, and sometimes things just happen in your favor. Okay? So as I'm texting that, I've left my phone. Now I never have a password on my phone. I don't have password on my phone. Just these times anyway, I didn't. At the time I didn't have password. So obviously when you go onto my phone, you can just go into it, right? So obviously she texted me something after, and it's been the conversation is a bit more calmer, right? So I've texted her back, and we've had a little bit of another 2-3 minutes of texting, but it's much more calmer. Now I know how women are, or at least I know how my girl is. I've laughed. Alright, I'm gonna go to the toilet. This is bad. I kind of throw my phone onto the chair, and I get up and go to the toilet. Now I know once I go to the toilet, she gonna check this phone. Of course she is, because we've been doing dark arts to each other all relationship. So I go upstairs and I go into the toilet. I go for a little pee. I turn the taps. Shh. I'm taking extra long while I do. I'm not rushing, I'm taking my sweetest time, I close the taps. I dry my hands. I dry my hands like this, and then I leave the toilet. I walk down the stairs slowly. I don't rush it. I want her to know I'm coming down the stairs. I don't want her to rush and feel like, he's coming and I've got to put the phone away. I want her to feel as comfortable. So I'm like, doom, 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 doom. I done the last 2 steps, and I walk into the room. My phone, I can see it's still there. And these are the days when Android text will pop up, or my text would pop up in it. So you, even if she want to go in, you'll see it because it pops up. Yeah. And it pops up quite a few, the text or whatever. So obviously now I've walked in, and she's like, "Oh my God, is that what you're doing now?" I'm like, "What am I doing? What are you talking about?" Now, at this time, I don't know what the word gaslighting is, but it's gaslighting, let's be honest, right? She's like, "Is this what we're doing now?" I said, wait. Let me just do the face, because this wasn't the face. I wasn't smiling. I was like, "Wait, what?" Because I'm a good actor, guys. I'm just, let me just put the face. I'm like, "All right, wait, what? What are you talking about? What's the problem?" She's like, "So you just texting this girl just like this?" I was like, "Wait, what text did I send? What are you talking about?" "Oh, so you're going to play dumb now?" Yo, Evelyn, I have no clue what you're talking about. Me and Evelyn have been chatting back and forth, just having banter and jokes, nothing deep. She's like, "Oh, okay, is that what we're doing? All right, cool. All right, we'll see." Now I know in that moment what I was doing. I know what I was doing by bringing the other girl in. I know what I was doing by having conversation with that girl. I wanted my girl to see. And the reason here is what I wanted her to see. I wanted her, number one, to see you ain't the only one that can get guys as well, right? Because we had a power indifference. Or at least I felt we had a power indifference, right? Because first of all, I had my own insecurity, let's be honest. Number two, she generally was having guys after her quite a bit, and it was me that had no girls. It looked like I had no girls following me. So I had to level it up, it felt like. I had to level it up a little bit and, bring it in together. Okay, so, I ended up, obviously, at that moment, I'm like, I've said what I've said, and I know she's seen the messages. And the sole purpose of doing this is taking her down a peg. Let's keep it a buck what it is. The sole purpose of doing this is taking her down a peg, number one. Number two is letting her know, just in case you thought you were safe and you think you can play me, just let you know there's women out here who want me. So I need you to hold on tighter, because you acting like you're the only one that's got Negroes out here. I got ninjas too, right? I'm trying to let her know that, you ain't the only one that's got power in this relationship. If I step out today, I could get girls today. Don't play with me. You know what I'm saying? Right? Some of this is insecurity, but some of this genuinely is what our relationship was like. We're moving mad to each other, right? So I know what it looks like when you are triangulating and bringing a third party. Now, the other party didn't even realize, but I used them in the form of that relationship. Now, of course, that was very evil. I know that now, and it's very manipulative and it's emotionally abusive. Really and truly, it's emotionally abusive. Okay, guys, I told you when I said this dark cast, I already know what it's about. Okay, so this is emotionally abusive, to do such a thing and to triangulate and bring a party in just so that you can create an effect in that relationship. It's a power move, it's a power grab. And so when I'm seeing what DDG is doing with his ex, now of course he may not have asked his ex to message him on Twitter or to expose the tweets about him DMing her, but you sure do know who Ruby Rose is. You know what Ruby Rose is about. You know exactly what Ruby Rose is about. And if I already know what someone is about, I can predict your behavior. So if I can predict your behavior, I can count on you doing something for me. Now, I'm not saying 100% this is what DDG was doing, but I'm saying in my most darkest mind, how I'm thinking about it, you know that if you message Ruby Rose and you text her something, because in the text it's very clever. He just asks her, what are you doing? Are you up? What you doing later? He hasn't actually really said that he's doing anything. It's more of an insinuation. But that's enough to get us talking. That's enough for Ruby to take it and run with it. That's enough to create the illusion or the perception that you tried to move mad with Ruby. But it's not enough to necessarily condemn you, because you can say, oh no, I just meant to say, what's she doing? Is she up? Whatever, da da da. Right? It doesn't necessarily, the text wasn't so ominous that you can lock him down to it. And so it becomes very clever, the text message. And it becomes very clever that you know that your ex is going to react in a particular way. Right? Just saying. Just saying. So not saying that he necessarily is definitely doing this. I'm just kind of giving a perspective on this dark arts aspect, right? So, having that aspect of a relationship where your ex is so prominent, your ex has history of being toxic, you've been toxic with your ex, and you just know that if you entice your ex, she's gonna do something. And then you go back and forth trading shots with your ex online. How do you think that's gonna affect Haley? This is what I'm saying about dark arts. If I go back and forth with that girl, right, you damn well know it's gonna affect your partner. It's making her look silly. It's embarrassing her. It's shaming her. And it's destroying the strength of your union, but it's making her unsure about your actual intentions towards her and whether you still care. When you do that, what you're doing is actually destabilizing the other person so that they can begin to care more. Because what happens when people start to care less, the other person starts to try and care more to hold on to them. And so some people who have a disposition, they try to create these dramatic dramas and toxic environments because that is what they're used to. That is what's normal to them. And so in order to not feel deposed of their safety, right? In order not to feel deposed of their safety, they create dramatic environments so that you can then begin to feel unnerved and begin to hold on to them. It's political. It's what people be doing, It's what people be doing, right? It sounds mad, but people be doing this kind of stuff, right? With the intention of being that manipulative. Like, it really is dark. I can tell you some stuff I've done in the past, man. I was devilish, bro. Like, some of the things I was doing. So so when I say, like, it's not far-fetched for someone to think like that. And everyone thought, I was a good guy. Everyone did think I was a nice guy, a good guy. And I was a nice guy. I had my ways of being passively aggressive in maneuvering things. So just because somebody looks like that doesn't mean they're not capable of the madness. I brought madness to my relationship. That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. So if I can do it, trust me, and probably DDG could do it easily. But again, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Can't say 100%. Now let's talk a little bit about this situation. I said being all in is scary. The reason why sometimes people have a backup in their relationships is because being all in is scary, right? When you're fearful because of emotional wounds that you carry from childhood or past relationships. Remember, he came from a relationship with Ruby Rose where they were both toxic. I think he cheated on her, she cheated on him, a whole lot of stuff. When you start cheating, whether you've been cheated on or cheating, there is emotional wounds that begin to form. The emotional wound that begins to form is, can I trust you? And sometimes you can't trust other person because you can't trust yourself. And sometimes you can't trust other people because you've seen that you've put your trust in other people and they've broken it. So in these emotional wounds, people can struggle, and being all in is scary. So they leave something behind so they can come back to and fall upon, so that they don't feel the weight of pain that happens when you have a breakup, or someone, when it doesn't go correctly or doesn't go right the way you want it to, when it finishes. And so sometimes what people do is they don't go all in. They don't throw all the chips in. They throw some of the chips in and leave some behind so they can come back to it. That's what I feel like with DDG is happening here. It's like you've kind of cast your pearls with Halle Bailey, but then when Ruby Rose comes knocking, saying about your girl this or your girl that, what you should have been doing first and foremost, right, is with Halle behind the scenes, calling Ruby with Halle and saying, hey, look, we're not about to do this. I'm not about to trade shots with you online about what you feel is happening, right? But because he messed up, he couldn't do that. So because he messed up, he had to try and cover it again publicly. But what you don't realize is, as you try to cover things publicly, you expose your relationship publicly. Now, had he not done anything wrong, had he not been moving mad, and I know he definitely was moving mad, because that video where he reacted, saying about his ex is a this and that, the way he reacted to it, it was too obvious that he had done something, right? But it's like, if you hadn't done anything wrong, you should have literally been with Halle on the phone. Halle, we're gonna call her together. You're gonna be on the phone. I'm gonna make sure she knows this ain't happening. Right? I'm not about to do this. I'm not about to go trading shots with this girl. I've finished with her. I'm done with her, and I don't want nothing to do with her. So I don't like the fact she's even doing this. That's one way to handle it. The other way is just to say, we're gonna ignore it and we're gonna leave it as it is. We're not involved. Right? But this part, yeah, you moved mad. I don't feel like you've put all in, because the way you're reacting to your ex. Bro, when I moved on from my ex, I moved on, bro. You're not about to drag me back into nothing. You're not about to drag me into nothing. 1D. Vulnerability gives someone else the power, and I was kind of talking about this as well. When you want to be vulnerable, depending on what you've experienced, it can be very difficult, because you assume that vulnerability is about giving someone else the power over you, rather than looking at it as a concession and submission onto somebody. This is why submission becomes a very difficult thing for some women, because of the emotional pain they've suffered. Submission becomes, I'm allowing you to take advantage of me, rather than I'm submitting and giving you my heart. I'm trusting you. So you have to understand that vulnerability does give someone power. But if you look at it as, I'm going to be taken advantage of, you won't want to be vulnerable with your partner all the way. You'll give some vulnerability, but you'll hold it back, a lot of it, because you're scared of what? Being hurt. And you're scared of being what? Taken advantage of. Once again, have you fully healed from the past relationship with Ruby Rose? That's the question. Now, that's the real question. That's the real question. We do have to ask Halle some questions. I'm going to put at the very end. We do have to ask Halle some questions, because if she saw Ruby Rose with DDG and saw parts of the relationship at least, and saw some effects of the relationship, she's going to have to take some accountability. But we talk about that in a sec, right? So the vulnerability part, it can be very hard to allow someone in all the way, because if you allow them in all the way, they have power over you. Let me give you another story time. Okay. Let me give you another story time about this, right? In vulnerability, let me give you another story time. Okay. I remember one of my relationships, and I remember at this point in time, I remember this thought I had. I said, I'm not going to let her in I'm not going to let her in too deep. I'm not going to care about her too much, because then that would give her power. I genuinely had that thought. It's so mad. When we first started dating, I said to myself, I don't want to care too much because it will give her power over me. That's how I thought about it. If I love you all the way and I'm all in, I'm gonna give you all the power. And I remember saying this as well. Like, you know what? I remember saying this to her even. Listen, if you leave, I won't die. It's just that simple. If you leave, I won't die. And what you don't realize is you're being invulnerable, but you're also pushing the person away. You're being a repellent at the same time. Being invulnerable makes you a repellent for your relationship, right? And all it was is because I was scared to open myself up, because then that would give her what? Power to what? Hurt me. That's how I looked at it. Rather than looking at it as, I'm trusting you with something that's dear to me, and I trust you enough to hold on onto it for me. It was a trust issue. Nothing to do necessarily with her, just to do with me. I don't trust you. So I would constantly throughout the relationship be like, you know what? If you leave, I ain't gonna die. If you leave, I ain't gonna die. I'm sorry. I cannot come and die. This life is not do and die. No, I cannot come and die. So if you leave, innit? It's up to you, but I'm not dying. I'm here. Yeah. If you leave, I'm not gonna die. So up to you what you do, but not for me. I won't die. And that's how I saw things, right? But when you look back on it, you realize, no, that was detrimental to my relationship. Very much detrimental to my relationship, because it made it feel as if that I personally didn't care about the person and that I kept them at arm's length. Can't run a relationship like that. Can't run a relationship like that, right? All right, next point. So safety versus comfortability. I think I've misspelled that, but don't worry about that. You know what it is. Safety versus comfortability. Okay. All right. Okay. Safety versus comfortability. So, I was talking about this earlier on. And so comfortability, when we look at the definition of comfortability, let me get my definition so that you can so I can get that up, right? But when we talk about comfortability, what we're talking about is the feeling, okay? The feeling of feeling free from fear, and feeling free from stress, okay? Let me put wrong one. I've just opened the wrong one. I want to just put this back up. Sorry. Wrong one. Hold on 2 seconds, guys. Open. There we go. Okay, comfortability. Okay. All right. So comfortability. When we talk about comfortability, what we're saying is free from stress or fear, or the state of contentment, providing physical ease and relaxation. Yes, providing physical ease and relaxation, versus safety, which is protected from or not exposed to danger or risk, not likely to be harmed or lost. Okay, now there's the two words are very, very similar. Okay, very, very similar, but they're not the same. And this is how I understand it to be, right? Safety versus comfortability. I can be safe, but not feel. I can be safe and have a level of comfortability. I can be comfortable and not feel safe. But even if I felt comfortable, I'd feel uncomfortable if I wasn't safe. Let me give you an example. Example of what I mean by this is the bed could be super comfortable, but if you fear for your life, no matter how comfortable the bed is, the safety becomes more important. So safety comes first, if that makes sense, right? Because the bed could be so comfortable, could be 3,000 thread, 4,000, 40,000, 50,000. It could be the softest bed you've ever slept in with the sexiest pillow you've ever laid your head upon. But if you don't feel safe in that room, the bed becomes inconsequential. Comfort is no longer comfort. So feeling safe is paramount and number one. Because once I feel safe, even if the bed isn't the best bed, I can sleep knowing that I'm safe. It might not be the most comfortable, but you know what? I'm safe. So safety has to come first. When safety is compromised, this is where people have issues in relationships. A lot of us don't feel safe. This is the biggest issue. DDG, I don't know how safe he feels. And I'm not saying that's necessarily Halle's fault. Haley's fault. I don't know how safe DDG feels. And I say this because sometimes when you grow up in certain environments, let me put it this way. What you do to feel safe can make you unsafe, but it makes you feel safe. If that makes sense, right? What you do can be unsafe, but it makes you feel safe, right? But you don't realize it because you feel safe. What I mean by that is you can be born into cultured into toxic environments, and what will happen is you will try to find other toxic environments because that feels safe to be in, because it's familiar and it is something you're used to, right? Is what you're used to. So what can happen to people is they can feel safe in unsafe environments, but it makes them feel safe because it's a familiar energy and familiar territory, right? DDG seems to, for me, from my personal opinion, just from what I'm seeing in a short amount of time, seems to like drama, lives in it, enjoys it, flourishes in it. But the reality is the drama is toxic and it's unsafe, but it makes him feel what? Safe. Because he's used to that familiar background and that familiar energy. So what happens? They replicate that toxicity in new environments because it can't get used to being in a new environment without the old energy. So people will end up replicating certain behaviors because it feels nice to be where you were before. And that's what I'm kind of getting with DDG a little bit, right? That's what I'm kind of feeling. That's why is it the mom or the sister got involved and said she want to get at Ruby Rose. I was like, he's a grown ass boy. He can defend himself, right? So you can feel safe in unsafe places because the unsafeness is your safety. It is your lane. And that is a response to the trauma that you found a way to cope and a way to actually live in those circumstances. You've made the best of it. And so therefore, even if it's unsafe to others, you find unsafeness safe. It's like being in the hood and want to stay in the hood because you know what? You're used to gunshots going off. We're used to crime. We're used to the noises at night. It's too quiet where we are now, the suburbs. It's too quiet. Nothing goes on. People don't even, you know what I mean? Like, it's different. So what I get from DDG is that he likes the drama, and I'm kind of going ahead of my point because that's, that's one of my other points. That was actually my number 4 point. But he likes the drama, and he lives in the drama, right? So he continues to drama on. Used to dysfunction, yes, and so dysfunction continues. Okay. Now, my next point is this. Well, sorry, let me talk about triangulation first. And then I'll talk about what we were talking about back again. I probably should have done this earlier on. Definition of triangulation. So triangulation is a relatively common dynamic when conflict occurs, but it can be very problematic. People engage in triangulation for a range of reasons, including seeking reinforcement and support for one's views, possibly due to lack of confidence in one's own emotions and views, avoiding conflict and utilizing another person as a deflection, garnering support as a way of demonstrating to the other party the correctness of one's view, attempted to mobilize emotion against the other person for a social group as a means of retaining control or social capital during a conflict. Okay, so triangulation is a relatively common dynamic where conflict occurs, but it can be very problematic when people engage in triangulation for a range of reasons. So triangulation again can be, like I said, doesn't have to be necessarily negative or you trying to manipulate, but it can be those things as well. Now, going back onto my point, that one of the things also about manipulation is this, and again, I'm again speculating, it's more theory. Haley is growing, so I gotta choke you with madness. Let me say this again. When we fear that someone could outgrow us, we have to clip their wings. And the way to clip somebody's wings in this instant is to surround them in so much drama that they have to focus on who? You. Right? When you're involved in drama, you have to focus on who? Your partner. And so when your partner makes the drama surround you, it becomes that they become the piece and the focal point. It's a manipulation tactic. So I'm not saying this is necessarily what DG is doing 100% again. I'm more offering this aspect because I'm looking at the situation going, you know what? This could be a few things that could be happening. You can choke somebody, clip their wings by what? By making sure that they are enthralled and embroidered and surrounded by drama. That keeps their eye off the flight they're meant to take and focus on the ground fight that's happening. Get them so caught up in the ground fight they don't want to grow anymore. Make them so bad they don't want to rise anymore. Right? This is one of those tactics that can happen, guys. It's one of those tactics that can happen. It's political, but it's stuff that can happen. I just realized I haven't even put this as a thingy as well. Okay, so let me cool. Okay, so is it professional jealousy? It can be. It can be professional jealousy, but it can also be because you can see where they're going, and they're going without you. And insecurity can make you feel like the person's going to leave you once they get too big, right? If you're not very secure. And oftentimes, men that are don't know how to emotionally regulate, men that are poor with their emotions, men that are, I would say, that also times that grow up amongst women and they don't pick up the positive traits of those women, they're dangerous. So the men that grow up around women who don't pick up the positive traits of those women can end up doing this stuff a lot of times because what they're really trying to do is, and again, and if you grow up around a father figure too, who you've seen abused, and this also could be part of it as well. But I mean, people who end up growing and seeing this, they are insecure, and that's what makes them want to cut your life short in your profession. But the reality is, the reason why is because the person doesn't feel secure. And you know what's interesting? Because I remember I spoke to a not young, but I spoke to when I was in America. I was flying from from Atlanta to DC. Sorry, from New York to Atlanta. From New York to Atlanta. And I was speaking to this woman on the plane, this white woman. And she was telling me about her relationship, her marriage, and saying both her and her husband are go-getters, ambitious, the big boy things. I think I've told you the story before. And what happened with her is that when she spoke to her husband about one of her new promotions, he couldn't show all the happiness that she wanted him to show. He was happy, but he was not ecstatic. He was, but he couldn't be all the way happy. And she had a conversation with him as to why he felt that way, right? They've had 18 years, so she's not just going to quit it. And he expressed that, listen, he is happy, but the problem with her getting a promotion is that he knew there'll be less time for her at home. That would mean more time for him in the relationship with the kids. That would mean him spending more time at home. They'd have to change their schedules. There'll be things that would change in their relationship a lot more. So he was already seeing ahead of time that things would change, and that's why he couldn't be all the way happy with her. thus they had a conversation. In the end, she had to kind of she had a conversation and soothed his fears by them having compromise and working out how they were going to make it work. People do feel insecure. That's the reality of things. People do feel insecure, but we didn't have to have a conversation about things so we can see how best we can move forward in order not to hold each other back. It may mean that we may mean that we may not be able to maybe go for a promotion, or maybe we can go for a promotion. Maybe it means we have to wait, stuff like that. You know, El Cid says she had a huge promotion after 13 years of marriage. I got a huge professional promotion and didn't work out. Yeah, and this is the tough part, right? Because then you have two different ideologies in terms of how you want to go forward. And again, and this is what she was telling me. She's like, you have to know what kind of woman you marry. Did you marry a career woman? If you married a career woman, then this is gonna happen. Like, she's gonna want to blow up her career. She wants to win. But if you marry somebody who's a hybrid, who likes career but wants to stay at home, that's another situation. If you marry somebody who just wants to stay at home, that's another situation. So, she was really breaking it down, but she spoke about the fact that, yes, when she got that huge promotion, but she was already making money already. This is not a thing. She was already making money. She was already having hours outside of work. She was already successful on a huge level. But on this next step that she was about to take, it would take even more time away. It would mean that she would be flying out to places. It would mean that, he would have to take more bulk than he already had been taking, and that's what was causing tension for him. They had to have a conversation about it. Chile, that was a hard conversation she said she had. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hard conversation. El Cid said she warned him. Then he has to be ready, because that's what's going to happen. We have to find a solution to the problem. That's what he needed. Solutions to the problem. It can happen that way. And I'll say this for us as men. We're not afraid of the promotion itself. We're afraid of what it may do. We're not afraid of the promotion. We're afraid of what it may entail, which will mean my role as a man being no longer needed. The need for me going out the window. The importance of me going out the window. The necessity of me going out the window. The importance out the window. That's what men are afraid of. It is being outdated and being put on the shelf. So the promotion itself isn't the issue. It's what it may entail. It's tight. All right, cool. So, professional chokings. Okay. My last few points. Old girl is who he wants to be. So Ruby Rose represents somebody who he wanted, who he was, not necessarily maybe who he wanted to be, right? Because sometimes our exes represent who we were, and the girl we're with right now, the guy we're with right now, can represent who we want to be. But if there has not been a sufficient amount of maturity between the two stages, then the yearning and the desire to go back to what we know is very strong, and we may go back to what we know. What does that mean? I mean, in a sense of, that's a good point, Sean. That's a good point. I believe that obviously, what we look for in these situations is that that the ex represents part of you, but the new girl represents who he is now, or who he wants to be now. But you have to have learned sufficient knowledge and understanding to be able to attain it, accrue it, and maintain it. And sometimes it can be very difficult when you're being asked to expand, because when you're asked to expand, I don't know if I have the tools or the resources to do so. And then I become disheartened and disenfranchised. And then I go back to where I feel like a king. You hear many men, or some men, saying, you know what, I cheat on this with you with this girl, not because she's a baddie, but because, you know what, she made me feel like a king. And people are looking for when they can be a king or a queen and be treated as such. And so sometimes the old you feels like a king, and you go to the new you, and in order for you to be a king, there's a sufficient amount of work that needs to be done in order for you to be king. And that can be very difficult. That can be very difficult. Sometimes the ex represents who they were, but the new one is representing who they want to be. And sometimes if the maturity isn't there, the work hasn't been done, and if the motivation isn't right, the determination isn't right, then they may quit in the process of becoming and downloading into that new person, and they'll end up retreating. All right, 6. He has no relationship etiquette. Okay. All right. No relationship etiquette. Yes, Elsie, thank you. The ex is comfortable sometimes. Yes, very true. The ex is comfortable sometimes. That's very true as well, Sean. As men, we prefer respect over emotions of love. Most, not all. That's true. I agree. You know, um, that's very true. Yeah, I spelled etiquette wrong. I just realized that. Thank you, Elsid. You can tell my spelling be over the place. I put educate, not not etiquette. Thank you, Elsid. I appreciate you. I probably spelled it wrong again, to be honest, but that's me. Anyway, I probably spelled it wrong, but yeah, thank you, Elsid. So yeah, he has no relationship etiquette. What I mean by that is like this whole situation, how it is meant to be handled, is that you are to protect your relationship and protect it from the threats that are coming. The queen is exposed right now. If you're playing chess, you'd be finished right now, right? So there's no relationship etiquette in the sense of the way you've handled scenarios by going on social media, going on Twitter, and going back and forth with your ex. It's relationship etiquette. You should have gone behind the scenes, spoke to Haley, coordinated a union attack, and then gone about how you're going to move forward. That is somebody who cares about the union, who cares about how we move. But because obviously you might have broken up for a day or two or whatever, you handled it in this abysmal form and way, which actually brought more heat to Haley than it actually needed to. And then it seemed reactionary and young-minded in the way that you handled it by going back and forth with your ex on Twitter. It's embarrassing. The queen was left exposed. The queen was left exposed. That's what I'm saying about that. It's embarrassing. My final point in this is that the queen is exposed, as I was just saying. But I gotta say this, look, at the end of the day, when we come to these situations, you really must understand that you cannot leave the queen exposed, because there are other people who are watching, waiting to capture the queen. There are other people waiting to capture the treasures in your land. There are other people waiting to take advantage of your weakness to take over. Now your queen is exposed. She gonna feel some type of way. And actually, you have some work to do to rebuild the bridges of trust between yourself and the queen. I'm not saying queen without king, don't worry, but I'm saying that you have to understand that by you doing this behavior, you don't know what damage you've done to the queen. And if it's not repaired, the tear is only going to get worse over time. Because as we look at things over time, they get progressively worse. If you don't heal the bridge and mend all the wounds and you know and plaster over the holes, you're going to find yourself in a situation where the queen can slip away from you over time. And then your very worst fear, which you probably thought was going to happen, actually happens. But the reality was you were actually a part of the problem. That's why it's happened. So one has to what? One has to make sure. Oh, that's my head. One has to make sure that they protect the queen. Protect the queen. Don't expose her on social media. Don't let her get into fights with with your ex-girlfriend. You know, handle it. Be in control, protect emotionally and mentally. Don't expose the queen. All right, guys, that is it. I've actually stayed on time today. I've done an hour. I will chop up this video into different pieces so that you can see it. But I really, really appreciate you guys. We'll be back a little bit later on, about an hour's time, for the open panel. Hopefully, we'll get to see you guys there as well. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Click on the bell button for notification on uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon for another enthralling conversation. But let me tell you something.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
We appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded.
Black, you know what time